Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Karen and this is Southern Ketovore. If you are new here, I have been following a ketogenic / ketovore / carnivore diet for the last 5 years, since July of 2017. And in that amount of time, I have reversed my type 2 diabetes. I've seen tons of other health improvements, and I've also lost about 45 pounds in the process. I'm still getting closer and closer towards my goal weight, so now it's moving a little bit slower, but above everything else, I have seen tremendous health improvements, which I want to talk about a little bit today. Obviously, I am just an ordinary person, and this is just my personal experience. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutrition coach, so none of this should be taken as medical advice. But today, I want to talk to you about my 5 biggest benefits that I have seen in following this way of eating. I'm also going to share 2 bonus, kind of unique and different and unusual improvements that I have personally seen that I don't think you typically see anywhere on the list for people. So these are in no particular order, just kind of spitballing. I did take notes, but spitballing my top 5. So number 1 is blood sugar stability. Back prior to the change in the way I ate, I was always in the 120, 130 range fasted. After consuming meals, I would near 200, sometimes pop over 200, and very rarely did my sugars return to normal within 2 hours. Now, these days, I am constantly kind of slow and steady between 85 and 95. Occasionally, I'll jump over 100 a little bit with a meal, but it is always definitely in that non-diabetic range. So that has been huge. That alone has been the biggest health improvement that I have seen. Number 2, heartburn. This is one of those wins that I never saw coming, like ever. I was taking omeprazole daily. I had Tums in my car, Tums at the office, Tums in my purse, Tums at home in the kitchen cabinet. I had them everywhere, and I was chewing up Tums every single day. I was probably getting more carbs and calories from Tums than anything else. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks into following keto that I realized I hadn't been chewing up Tums. And I was like, wait a minute, where did my heartburn go? This is bizarre. And even today, the only time that I do have any kind of heartburn is if I consume any nut products. So any kind of nuts, nut butters, or nut flours, they do tend to give me heartburn. So I avoid those pretty much all the time unless it's a special occasion. So that's number 2. Number 3, fatigue. I was exhausted all the time, like always tired, always looking forward to my next nap. I never felt like I got a restful enough night's sleep or enough hours of sleep. And then during the day, I had that blood sugar, the ride where it was like I'd eat and I'd feel pretty good, and then I'd start to feel lethargic, and then I'd eat again and feel pretty good. But the biggest thing was I napped every single day. I would get into the car line early to pick my kids up from school so that I could take a little cat nap in the car line, set my alarm for when they were going to get to the car. I would take a nap in the evenings before I would cook dinner. But it was every single day taking a nap. And now I feel so much more present and able to have an actual full day since I'm no longer fatigued and lethargic. Number 4, my resting heart rate. So I found out when I was probably in my early 30s that my resting heart rate was high. Typically it was in the low hundreds, so it was like 104, 105 resting. During any kind of strenuous activity or cardio or anything, it would jump up into the 170s. The way that was explained to me was that my heart was having to work harder to get through my body fat, but in general it was still considered mildly tachycardic. So that was something that obviously was putting a strain on my heart and has been tremendously improved. So these days I'm right in the low 80s, typically like 82, 84 is my norm for my average pulse rate. And if I do anything strenuous, it's in like the 140s. Number 5 is the thing that for whatever, I don't really understand why, but this is one of those things that like women are a little ashamed of, but I used to have gout flares. My big toe joint on my right foot would swell and get angry, and it just ached and throbbed. It felt like someone had hit it with a hammer. It affected my gait and how I walked. It affected what shoes I was willing to wear. It affected my activity level, and it was near constant. Now I only have gout, any kind of gout flare, if I slip up, and it's painfully obvious immediately. Like within 12 hours, I start with a gout flare. So obviously, that is incentive to avoid having foods that I know my body does not appreciate. Now, my 2 bonuses. Number 1, and please, 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 leave me a comment down below if this is something that you suffered with, but sleep paralysis. I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but it sucks. It like super, super sucks. You are asleep, but you feel like there is a monster sitting on your chest, and you cannot breathe, and you cannot move, and you cannot scream for help. It is a helpless and terrifying feeling. I started having sleep paralysis episodes in my late teens, and in the maybe 5 or 6 years prior to adopting a ketogenic lifestyle, I had gotten to where I was having them all the time, typically 4 or 5 times a month. Sometimes they would cluster, and it would be a week or so at a time where I would have them nearly every single day. They are still to this day probably the one improvement that is the one that I am most appreciative of. Losing weight, super cool. Losing sleep paralysis is like the biggest relief of an anxiety that I've experienced in my life, and that is huge. My number 2 bonus, this one is, I think, something a lot of people don't talk about. Prior to keto, my choice of foods when I would prepare meals for my family were the blandest, saddest, most boring, processed garbage ever. So it was like packets of instant mashed potatoes and pastaroni and rice-a-roni and just junk, and a can of green beans or a can of green peas and some kind of bland, boring chicken. I have learned with following a keto lifestyle how to cook, what spices to use, what fun things to include, different ways to cook, different methods, you know, using the Blackstone griddle, using a grill, using a cast iron, using the air fryer, all sorts of different ways to prepare different things. And I've also become more adventurous when it comes to trying different varieties of meat, different cuts of meat, different vegetables that I'd never picked up before. And it's really just opened my mind to new flavors and new textures and new types of things in order to keep my diet interesting. And I'm so thankful, because there's so many foods that I had not tried that I was either scared or intimidated by, or that I just didn't have any interest in, or I thought I wouldn't enjoy. I was one of those people that hated avocados, right? And I really didn't like beef. And it was because I didn't know how to make any of this stuff, and I didn't know how to pick a ripe avocado, and I didn't know how to put things together. And that's something that I definitely appreciate that I've learned how to do, is to cook and enjoy things. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my 5 biggest benefits that I have seen with following a ketogenic way of eating. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Love you, mean it. Hey guys, really quickly, just wanted to add in a closing. I started to kind of close out my video on my 5 biggest benefits of a ketogenic lifestyle with my 2 bonuses, and my husband got home. And as he got home, I don't know if anybody else's significant others are into this, but he has been super into car stereos since we were kids. And I say since we were kids because we started dating when we were teenagers. And so he is all about like rattling all of the windows and waking up all the neighbors. And so I'm sitting there trying to do my closing on my video, and you just hear this like boom, boom, thumping coming along as he is pulling up to the house. So I had to like cut it rapidly short, and then all the dogs went crazy, and then I couldn't close it. So this is your explanation and extremely lengthy closing, I guess is what this is. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you again for checking out today's video. Again, I would love for everybody involved to, if you have any questions or if you've seen huge benefits or anything with following a keto lifestyle, to leave that in the comments. I would love to hear about your successes, or if there's anything that you're wanting to reverse or improve with your diet. I would love to hear about that as well. If you haven't subscribed, I would also love to have you as part of my YouTube family. I'm also over on Instagram at Southern Ketovore as well, and I post my meals daily over there as well. So if you are ever looking for a little inspiration, you can always check that out. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I will see you on Monday with my next video. I'm also going to work on my 5, if I can come up with that many, cons of following this way of eating. So if I can think of 5, I'm going to try and throw that together for you later in the week too. So I appreciate y'all's time and you jumping in, and I will talk to you next time. Love you, mean it.